mal klabokle ungil tuta we ungil gotaluriol mergi daro hui gadamral marenga sule la rubak kal Dios ramal mle ungil weekend. Happy belated Father's Day. Akmal oreng lo asero huil adam. Mar single mom sel direkta adam me edil. I hope peng mal mle ungil la Father's Day gamiu. El altuta wa obangeda Division of Environmental Health el gida dimtinge rogul ngalo asengara eungel la Ministry of Health and Human Services. Obangeda el altuta akora mal misra chivertira akalpin ray kasila kulumda swaseng Johannes agulumda so se kalpin Johannes ami al uba chivertira mlo dia kandi kadamal ngal tangat telguk mlo sabela amis SYLVIA TMODRANG al ngia officer environmental health human services environmental health ma OSHIRO LORIN el direktara officer environmental health ma okyak sang artir nga namok over 6 ma 10 years lo may sen merbelang kapoy grata hitin tingkira Hawaii toktang ra entomologist ra Pacific Island Health Association Dr. Lim mangguk mo sab elo ay sergi dal atetel tel wirang gamar ni am legiren mem mangali mertit terun di kwase mem join ratio eguk mo ay saigel mo mesra al sela Pacific el guk sab el share lo bangier el al sils mamalungit total tede e kun maskawgung em mo mu ratio ergi
sulang Miss Chen malungil total mo bekla LORIN sa tel toksyo al tutaw mokte katal toksyo adi mewai sen mora community raurior el boloru ringia Division of Environmental Health el lomu ora klugul mo ongei melurior telurior amos pre el school ma imol PCC college rablur belau selgim du spray agi spray el ngari agar el gibo mix ringi oval spray el classrooms el volkeringi tirgal athletes el maralmera al sela kasal club sai diagi dim spray al sela classrooms agi diregal spray el dallom el medra el classrooms talurio ra ul magi mrugingi atu kodokora opasel tokol wasai kadamo mga sadal sel mo uleng moklo araktel dengi mal ubang igel guk pebira araktel moyura a vector born say amoktega celurior mo start raklugo so aurora mamu raklugo lomora ya koto school mamu raklugo sel college del Palau Community College and then en mo Maristela sa lower campus eselong edelurior en mora Akoro Elementary School ma National Airport del diesel arrival sel arrival aerial bel kerder ngiar adal mamalalagay sertir eselong ewal lurior akagi dele Miyuns Elementary School ma Mizenti esel mamong ei melurior Apala High School Harris, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Ege ya mobla of ela aurior lomu orakluguk. So say adal maurora our staff for office environmental health. Tangari tirigel mo cow control mo ensure ndi kar adal mo selvasion while ngari aurior. Itirigel adal mo spray a full PPE, low gown, gloves, goggles and mask. Saya motetele lauro aklu omura na no klara tutal ko taging ara PCC.
Ikal baby ra school.
Ela a school igel ngaria talo okria Palau Community College, Harris, Mizenti, Koror, Pala High School, Miyuns, Maristela. May gigi del school maringa talo okri mo akamaday tirigel athletes el maralmera sometimes next week.
Mtia de alway ang aramong al spirit ko mirar tial balangelara le spring de alway say.
No, di alway say. Agi di focus yel dalong okol boring tirgal athletes may.
Ma dia karaigal morning ya mini games aigal gym ma basyo.
Okay. Ngari yauro el alta melomda surtil agi de legal national gyms yel vedu venues matial erongul park. Aye marala orior ngi malere ram lato del mora governor orior mairai tirigel PNOC ma imol amayong al mora bilong se mo oriu rai gagi del accommodation and then agim umru ringi orior
Di el agi dam la soyis na already ako ring sa mga yar athletes ang lamay makora di wonder let sukum kom full gown spray kalepol sual molmo dia ka time le domis ang mal chlorgas ra al sel orior.
So basically gigi de yel gora gimil sal potential hazardous spot el moklo crowding villages may gigi del recreational parks el spectators mar athletes amoringi magimle focus sa gigi gigi del basol klo adal moringi dong ok for long period of time makada trial reduce the risk and mga other dong ok obang argasengi and then mosme start spread it to the rest of the community say adul mesering
Mel ang ngarako ramle decision kom come apple wasing kada mo spray kom agree wasing chlorgas kom spray raw eran me athletes.
So for preventive side you'll messengin wasi nganya abebira balu ultmedra bitargi del nganya outbreak ra dengirgil maralmay idiregal join hotel delegation maralmay say agimul bang al erulite agi del urior to prevent the community mendiagal gukal rida our athletes ya belaw al gukal face ra outbreak ra dengue or any other kind of disease. Any more questions you guys want to add?
Yel so ngaring yang itil garmi yung gamen termin sa pimilom ko tong ra 488-5350 el al ngat yang el bol sa baril hensi rang itil garmil girel ti igitel lomu latmo spray lomu raklugok el spray raigal pas venues maigal school el bol nga kloa dalong ok karangi makmul masa Mr. Oshiro malkukal ngaya swal mong el dungi o kore tungun masa Dr. Lim malgukal du sese. No, you can talk.
Oh, okay.
Then,
Thank you, Etienne. So nothing much to add on. Just want a friendly reminder for the public to always protect yourself from getting bitten by the mosquito by using insect repellent, especially when you're going out to join the crowds where there's a lot of people getting together. So just protect yourself. Either you wear appropriate clothes, long sleeve, or cover your body, but most importantly insect repellent so you don't get bitten by the mosquito.
They also said the green oil and the baby oil actually works with the mosquito. If you or Dr. Lim can answer that. Because a lot of plants now uses baby oil and green oil.
Yeah, I'm not familiar exactly to what green oil is, but repellents has a compound, especially DEET or a Picardin, IR35. There's a number of compounds that are approved that are safe. You always want to make sure that these are registered products, because anytime you're putting something on your skin, you have that risk of introducing something into your body. And so, if you do go to repellents, make sure you're wearing from a reputable brand. Oils such as baby oil, probably some coconut oil or whatnot, provide that layer of grease, like an extra layer, but that's not a repellent. And so the mosquito will probably come into contact and then decide not to eat you, as opposed to these repellents that Oshiro pointed out. They will actually disrupt their behavior, and so they will not want to come near you, actually stay away from you, and that's the word called repellent. It repels. Yeah.
Silmang el auriu retiang ngaring yakora osngela environmental health al mutal mo spray avang gukti tiagi den ngayak la vaulal may
dirga gi bom da social mo after spraying agi omesergi luase iruli tiang asku mongmorgi let's say for example riura alora athletes erong edel Sunday yang moringi outbreak adengi, yes maybe egil arulil toy, but dirga karaplan na mamurula follow up spraying regal accommodation sa mga venues.
El al time nganya cases ra dengil sa pedlo meser elang.
No, el al time dirga ka hindi ka malgay sa dengi.
El ang sa pedlo logger ka tokora lepto. Nganya cases ra leptor elang agang diwa dengue.
Both lepto and dengue el al time there are cases. The last case were two months ago. That's it.
Mainly I get cases in western ngarangaral area. Sab either was in topside area ng Palengke Labalu avang towards Tial and Rabalu.
It's ngora bari maybe lang upper side ra or middle or sel endrablu malu nga honto iga kora dakal it's like scattered dakal sa dak mumal centralized lang albasyo, but it's scattered or over mutra pabaldaw ma alsalairay.
Dia ka ngora pa iso ka loger kal toktang ala isel ay kal tokora makarado do nga seurar adarablu mel bolsab edel mak el partnership ra community ma hospital el eliminate tatokora dengue malepto mal sab egal bayngun masam el gora sab el educator adarablu sinseng kukora filteringi. Okay. So Doc, I was asking officer if you can share with the community how we can eliminate dengue and lepto.
A lot of these diseases are actually caused by us ourselves, humans. In particular, lepto and dengue, it's related to water. And so, in the case of mosquitoes, in order to reduce mosquito diseases, one of the first line of defense that we have as a community is to really look into our surroundings. We have, unfortunately, multiple species here in Palau. They're all the 80 species, if you heard, and those are actually the mosquitoes that bite during the day. So if you have mosquitoes that are flying around you during the early morning all the way to the early hours of the evening, those are the mosquitoes that can most likely transmit diseases like dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. And one of the recommendations, because it's pest-free, everyone can do it, is to eliminate breeding sites. So a breeding site could be as small as a lid from a water bottle, right? In one small water bottle, a female mosquito can come, lay her eggs. When the rain will come, it will flood the eggs even more, and then from that small breeding site will have more mosquitoes and more. A female can lay up to 100 eggs, and she can lay up to 3 times. So imagine if we all did our job in reducing the number of breeding sites. So, one of the invitation that public health has is to reduce those the items that's laying around, the buckets, the tires, the water catchment. If you have them, cover them. If we have boats, turn them around. That will do arguably one of the biggest impact. And that's something we can already do now in preparation for the South Pacific Games. But also that behavior, that change will actually continue to have an effect well after the games. The diseases transmitted by the mosquitoes are becoming more and more common, and they're getting more and more severe. And so things like what you just point out is actually a good habit to some people have every Saturday as a community. Let's clean up, or maybe every Sunday we do that as a community. Let's clean up. Again, a lot of the troubles that we see is caused by ourselves, and so I think it's important to look at ourselves and change that.
When you say water catchment that needs to be covered, then sabi di ami like screen that can cover it, that helps, or because I notice like my parents also and other of my relatives, they just use screen. Is that okay, or it needs to be actually covered, fully covered?
For mosquitoes, that's okay. But let's say lepto, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If the rat runs up the lolrutra udo adwa.
The idea is for, at least for the mosquito, you want to separate the water from a female that could come and lay her eggs on the top of the water. So if you're doing that, you're protecting yourself from mosquitoes. But there's other tons of waterborne diseases that are caused because of our habits, our bad habits.
Can it be caused also by like old tin roof? People use like the roof is already rusted, and then we're using it as a drinking water catchment. Can that also have an effect on our health?
Well, I can't guarantee you what's not been on the roof. It could be rats, it could be cats, it could be other sources of contaminations, even from the roof itself. So you want to consult, whatever reports are available.
SYLVIA makuwase kasi long to sumang abia ba mas ra adwe el ditya gidel amele marko asab el contaminated tiaralme
ang amel madil.
Matail.
Yes. Elang adwe mamadirta. Ya abia ba masaringi ogi wakarakan masaringi ami orti merong matingala ulra 1 hour after. Selvateng ulang wasas gigi del tablong muratang yang tanga absorbal ma absorber tial ang amel madili kadi kamodange mamalimiringi and then it's mas meringi maoya mangira regularly cleaning mas kumanya branches along the side trimming mendal accessory agi de levia bal morado. Not only that, I got armal chef mundiri gal ameado. Again, ako kanya bibirarak tololap. So, for the safe side, always clean your cutter. I got oil. Sel ko kalme ulang ariya fresh ral mo lagi sel oil water tank. Or regularly clean your tank. As ko makakora I'm sure asing mo ul tilal club say ask ra IKPB to test your water tank. Tirigya sa bil tsaka water tank.
Kami
hindi ka tiskit sa ma'am.
Ang ngoraswa del local wase once and spraying ngarinya ko ramo health risk kalmorar other let's say gom spray ngarinya other ngarse dia hamesterir ngarinya sab elmorinya health risk kay gal pesticide and bomb spray.
Of course, ang bawal pesticide ang ariya health risk ringi. Basel lamu laureo ringari tirigel kibom tulwa si ta control traffic control tamo ensure sel area longot mo kringi spray al dia kamlal melenglak ma dekar adal morsay isel wal mere spray mo ringa yellow tape al mo male traigel basyo ma sign al wasay dia kalbertel basyo medal a ogdel bu mo tula tal sigang isel after say del ogdel bu mo tula tal sigang ya staff ko ma mo traigel tape ma igel sign maskum ko morsel basyo imlo tong okra table or kamlo mrut tarangklel wipe it first rawer aw morut arsele mol se emel ti selgare mo morut amalem ko ngak moral morangare men se ebel mosmering
o mangel ang lapay ge the lol mitrar ar other was same by cell phone merek say tigel huk ngara igel pasyo pol sa barid by clean
ela igal skula aware wasi aurora mostar traklu kuma igaro school ma airport misel labong ebol marega tamatang igal preventive measures el bolo spare after a spray.
Okay.
So we work with the schools before we set up a TL schedule spraying rak.
You guys are on top of it.
Yeah. Give me a plan ahead of time before
Malungin.
come to talk show.
Hala tong cell call. We'll get that call.
Oi, manungit tutal na korban senis umima ada video.
Ngito taw.
Ngit tutal sen kaum til al hospital.
Oy, ngito taw.
Hureng sa til al hospital. Ang arnya agari yung sa kalogel wasli. Et asen tanggar hospital. Sekom tritri. Ako mara wasat tanggal hospital la angar underground Le malbok la islabaya. Dahil kaya din mo sa rakta transfer arm morara. Ang erong that pesticide mo sa din. Tiang diakal sa LCL favori blood flow sa igal obis. Kami bomb sprayer al sa igal obis. Sige na tara. Adi mo mesel ng ngungil. Diaka side effect ng morara. Ang erong mga umarangal wasarogul athletes el merverao para ir bulun metial el clocol mormira ako marang alwase tirger rogul athletes amar orus el prevent ay way gaydi the rak ta mga raktil di kalbortir kam kora ome gaygan el golbol me bukto ka corazon loge komal sulang.
Okay, small masaule kolera to answer your first question oy sel waratangga hospital ngariya adalo ngi el monitor ngi treater ngi el ya IQPV ya lak alwi ngariya time nguk mo visit rengel adal lo meso sia treatment el mor sel waratangga hospital ngar sel teletelel malu ngariya ngal sangsel ya advisor ngi regel guk mongal sangsel sen number 2 sel temela spraying regal school sel time agiblem kat makli loy segi lo mora tutaw al mora regal school le sel walulorngi nga doctor lim argasa active sel mo tutaw nga ngai maklok matedob lobal mo kop sengay ngar elol ngelol maklok matedob ra kop sengay Magiobar seguido el time el spray igel basyo sel bor ngi argas ngani ate ellen mo mother ngi raw era el bornya dalang okra al sel igel classroom sa school se yagi mulbang emot mo kortial lurele la spray el mo igel school ma airport sel number 3 grim oy our athletes el mesois ba ang aringi ya vaccination lolay maybe for other rakt hindi ka vaccine mo umorobra araktal dengi malepto se yagi mulbang emot mo kortialurior au ul mo gimo spray igal school. I hope pakle answer a question or kawe koler.
Sulang rakali may constitution. I hope ang kalmasam lo sabel hensi ay gelgarim yal gukal dimlag emautangan lumutalom kodong. Doctor, I was just curious. So, how does insects contribute to our ecosystem, and what role does it play in pollination and decomposition? I mean, you're the expert, so I think it'll be nice for our audience to hear if you can explain, like, for instance, the mosquitoes.
Right. So an excellent question is, what role do mosquitoes have in the environment and in the ecosystem? As you pointed out, mosquitoes are very important pollinators. They're very important in decomposition in the water. They eat the extra and make sure that the quality of water is good. And so we're talking about, these applications and the safety in accommodation for the athletes that are coming. And a lot of these, actually, most of these species that DH is targeting is the Aedes aegypti.
What's that?
So if you learn a little bit about Latin, "ti" at the end, it comes from. So Aedes is basically a black and white. That's the family day-biting mosquitoes. Aegypti, from Egypt. So that mosquito, unfortunately, was introduced into our Pacific Islands and around the world very, very early. So the argument is that mosquito should not be here in the first place. And so its part in the environment is arguably better if we removed it completely, because it's an invasive species. Now, you have a number of mosquitoes here in Palau which are good, we're specifically not targeting. So one of the highlights that was done was about the safety. So some of the locations that will not be treated because of, as you pointed out, there's some good stuff and some good species. Marshes, you don't do that inside, because that's where the local mosquitoes are, right? So the beauty, we talked about the airport, the points of entry, the seaports. Why? Is because this is where they most likely came from, because they're invasive. And so creating this barrier to protect the humans that are going to be coming, right, from who knows where in the region where there's diseases, from this invasive species that's established here. So what we're doing here is we're reducing the chances of having disease enter and able to spread freely. So it's really important to understand that the way this was designed was specifically to provide the highest level of protection to Palau. We want to make sure that if there is a case that is introduced here, we target the Aedes aegypti. They're not from here. Make sure that population is really low, so that if there's an introduction of a case on human cases, the transmission risk is really low. And by doing using these pesticides, which are actually very, very low on the toxicity level. These are pyrethroids. It's man-made pyrethrum in flowers. The team here has done a wonderful job. They're testing to make sure that these aegypti are susceptible to the lowest toxic compounds, which they are. And so what you're doing, you're creating a situation where you're using data and you're making sure that the tool you're using is effective, and you want to prevent it from not being effective anymore. So, some really good work that's been done by DH here. So you have a situation right now where you can use these pyrethroids. They're also using larvicides, which in many places it's so safe that they use it in drinking water. Now they're not going to do that here because we don't want to take that extra risk, but the chemicals that will be used this week and probably next week is very, very low. It's one of the safer ones. So we're blessed to have that tools still working for us here in Palau.
Thank you. Hala tong musel call. Musel call like 20 minutes. Go ahead, Janice. JJ.
Malungil tutale ko kasi ni firm tiga gid rogul adang artilal. Lobong gem. Lo Israel gid ratire la jarak travelao no araka sa mabaya maya. May elang gid dim sa bral may kalmral mel.
Oy.
Klokol. Endi sebo mo sa gid wa abaya mangaram. Kalblur pelao ayo zimli maral brahado. Ako te babo da karki krikita era do sa tayal to boy. Ako kasi sa gilid kan ulmay may Olympic. Kita ko ka ali bro de di adwa kasi mli maral ba adro ul bela.
Why say?
Program de pa una program dire bela. Que crees? Toko. Sura te cuba.
Dia mo klor mo metiga mo ngel muktal me la mo misanggal toktang al malungit sma daigal to ko mal mo understand de mo kargikla. Hindi ka mal masaw la kamenter kaw. Tiga mo ngel mutan may mutugok mo me masaw da tokora amagit mo kargiklar maasimru marubakal mula magit makmal masulang.
Mako tabela.
Why say?
Mutlit. Po to sa dai kan geret to maral. Men data ket mutlit emot mo ko amral. Mal awanan or orange. Atang uwi ni lo ko burak to ora mag. Ni nga orange sa awanay. Thank you bye.
Thank you. Masulang. So miya ti tawtangal malmol bengari ya kari kumang. Is there a caller?
Oo, ya kutan mermang.
Kapong erupa akong itutaw.
Oo, yun tiagi. Ken nombre alcohol.
Oy.
Akteligibel screen wala ban morning. Imamari dia ka dola spray ba blur bela o may school. No kung hindi niya ere tiya ulo master kami raw yan. Ito prevent harak kung diya kalbedi. Tiya gira age lasabi ang nilal tok tanga dogen. Ako aknara YouTube omes healing na akong kares na blur amrige. Gire la COVID-19. 74% al-adrablula ang ilong sa spike protein map al-sil sa na mo matangil wasi kaya spike protein sel mo tumilya masolar heart perkaw baka mo dia ko flex kaya circulation na aras ang debut travel niya sige dapat albang ringin result tra COVID-19 na blur velaw adira ka ben total abrahel daw ay sergi wasi na mo dia ka COVID-19 Kom dimno sel sobi kumi ma adra WHO bala yung ada CDC mergok mung mergon stop dia besar agim kau ternya adra blu mal abuna rak ter asina amnal mu tul mokloa COVID-19 ratse mal ngara internet ma yo mesni kom sulai gadi bulak dekor komiu yagi akman mereka suliu de komia komo mesra prevention gila yung bin bakman mereka sudi tetabom asugo magsabela toktang al-insert yan great el-inseringi ko man misulang na may igap
msulag elubang so maloyti saying so the caller just called. I'm gonna try and he said he's one of our regular callers and he reads the Bible and our Constitution almost every day. And he watches the world news, especially in the U.S., of what's going on. And he said there was a oversight hearing with the U.S. Congress about COVID-19 shots, that the Ministry of Health and Human Services asked us to get a shot, the first, second, and there was, I think, the third. So he's saying after these, after the Congress oversight, they found out that this COVID shot has affected us. Our muscles got weakened, our brain, and I'm sure you're aware of it. So he just wanted you to share your opinion on it, on the COVID shot. What you say? Yeah. You don't have to, I mean, no comment, or you don't?
I'm not an expert in vaccination. Like most, I trust in those who are, that they make the best decision, and then I go with that.
Yeah. Say the local Minister Rahel del Nia Vice President Arnold Oilo matiga lekuk nga management level by most of la share. Alo man sabi malom goto nga share 4882552 yak madanglil asab el other deritil ay del hensi makarim letiga mal di other environmental health enga ophthalmologist gukti aday galle gora at gora arm insects why say yeah. So doctor, I'm just interested if you can share that, you know, with the climate change that's going on, is it affecting the insects and the population of it? I mean, I'll be curious because right now it rains and it shines and it rains and shines. So, yeah, it's something interesting that, you know, we would like to hear about if you can share.
Yeah, and that's an excellent question, excellent observation. And that's an observation we can see is that's happening. The frequency of diseases that are related to environment are getting more and more common. Big outbreaks. So I'm going to take, you know, what I know is dengue, chikungunya, and Zika, for example. These outbreaks are becoming more and more common. And when they do happen, they're becoming more and more devastating. And what we're finding is a close relationship with weather patterns, extreme weather events, like typhoons are becoming more and more common. And so subsequently what you're having is also the increases of risk of these outbreaks occurring. We have a project, you know, with the Department of State where here in Palau we're creating these weather-based models. It's called an early warning system. You know, behind you is the wave, right? Yeah. You know, and it's kind of the same similarity. You have tsunami early warning system. And so we're developing these early warning systems for dengue, chikungunya, and Zika, where we're using some of the same weather stations to give us foresight on when events are most likely to happen or when there's increase. And some of the things that we add are weather, rain pattern, because as most of us know, the warmer it gets, well, the mosquitoes develop faster.
Oh, the warmer it gets.
Yeah.
There's more mosquitoes.
They develop faster.
Yeah. Oh.
And then the more rain there is, so if you imagine you have a cup of water, the female will come in, lay her eggs on the surface. Okay? The water is gonna probably evaporate. Mm-hmm. When it's gonna rain the next time, those eggs that are stuck on the surface, they're gonna get flooded. And then those eggs will hatch. And you get more mosquitoes and more mosquitoes. So warm temperature, more rain, more extreme hurricanes, for example, typhoons. After that, usually a lot of debris, more breeding sites. And so we see a strong relationship between these changes in weather and climate and meteorology.
It's a good thing you mentioned that, because you're speaking and and I start thinking that, so once they spray all the venues and the schools, all the places where the mini games, where they feel that there's going to be more crowds. If let's say if there was just a cap of bottled water that's sitting there and there's eggs, so the spray would actually kill that egg in that small cap of water.
Archer?
Yeah, with the archer, yes. Yeah, we have chemicals that can also target.
So it'll penetrate and kill the eggs.
Yeah, so we target the adults and
Yeah.
also the larvae and the one that's still in the water.
Wow.
There's chemical for it, so yes,
Yeah, the chemical they're using it's pyroproxyfen,
right.
and it's actually pretty smart. It's called auto dissemination. Dissemination means to spread.
Yes.
And so what they'll be doing this week is they'll be spraying on surfaces which the mosquito rest. The female mosquito, like after we had a big meal, right? We have a hard time moving. And it's the same thing with the mosquitoes. So they target those areas where they're gonna rest, take their nap, check their paws. The female's gonna go touch that surface which they treated with that larvicide, and then she will go and fly and put the product into that cap that you mentioned. So we're using the biology of the female
To kill?
against herself.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's really, really toxic for the mosquitoes, but it's super, super low toxic for pets, for humans and mammals.
You said it's made out of flour. Are there any specific flowers, or how many kinds of flowers that makes up
Yeah.
this?
So you remember chrysanthemums?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah. So entomologists or bug people, like people that look at bugs. Like, man, how come that flower is not getting munched by these caterpillars? And then they started doing the compound, and they found out that when an insect bites, it messes up with their it's called sodium channels. Anyways, it messes up with their behavior, and then they look funky, and then they die. And so those were really expensive to make because you had to grow millions and millions of flowers, extract that. And so what they found in chemistry is that you can make chrysanthemum-like or pyrethrum-like. So pyrethroid, so it's human-made pyrethrum. Yeah, in very cheap. Yeah, and it's very safe. And it's super, super toxic to insects, but not to
Humans.
and pets and whatever. So they're actually used very, very widely. Yeah.
So how many mosquitoes around the globe? And how many do we have in Palau?
So I'll answer the globe. There's about 2,000 to 3,000 species,
Wow.
but not even 20 of them.
In Palau.
Not even 20 of them are vectors of diseases.
Oh.
For Palau, how many?
Hello, we have 23 species.
23?
Yeah, out of the 23, we have 4 that carries dengue and
4 that
Zika,
can carry dengue.
Yes, those are Aedes aegypti, Aedes mosquito. I get black and white mosquitoes. Yeah.
I get black and white, I get carry, yeah?
Those are the
I get the
Aedes,
brown. Oh.
Aedes species
Oh.
of mosquito. And yes.
Wow. Saan ko mo upload, May? Don't just
Yeah,
come when
sure.
there's an event or nga niya caller. Oh, I put him or her on the air.
Oo, yakutan mo naman siya. Yagi bagay lekor nila. Kugero la sumum madangali masao ya sumum dile ka biya. Nilang madangali laboratory namrura a Singapore laboratory largas. Ite gira kali yung kugero ni de tiya kamanga de. Do kugero ya sumum madangali.
You understand what he said? He's asking if you know of a laboratory in Singapore that was built just geared for mosquitoes.
Yes.
Oy.
So that.
O dia kamagan mga ngasumong madangali uwi. Yung namo madangali madangali uwi largas ba utbiru sa laboratory.
Oy.
Sulang.
So
He said he wanted your feedback, yes or no, and then he said no, so he knows that you know what you're talking about.
No, so it's actually a mosquito factory.
And how many? So there's 2,000 some mosquitoes in this factory.
Oh, there's millions.
You have photos you want to share? No, next time.
But what they're doing is they're using, it's called the sterile insect technique. So they're rearing millions of sterile males.
Sterile males?
Yeah. So again, this is just in humans, right? Only females. I mean, no, this is only in, sorry, not human, in mosquitoes. Only females bite. The females need the protein from the blood to make the eggs, right?
Yeah.
And this is only in mosquitoes. Only the only purpose of a male mosquitoes is to make more mosquitoes, right? Not humans on the mosquitoes. Yeah.
Wow.
Some people would argue it's also in the humans, but so what they're doing is they're rearing millions of mosquitoes that are sterile. They don't bite. Their job is to go and mate with the females and then sterilize their eggs. And so
wow, how interesting.
Yeah. And so we're finding those are really good because, in some areas pesticides is not the answer. A lot of our protected areas like around us.
Is there any alternative that we can use for besides pesticide?
Absolutely. So you have that community engagement. You do that around your house. Then there's, like this mosquito factory in Singapore. There's a number of similar sterile male ideas that are getting more and more popular. You know why? Because people have abused pesticides, and so they don't work anymore. And what I wanted to highlight here in Palau, particularly with DH, is they're making sure that the products are working. They're making sure it's not resistant, like what's happening elsewhere.
So how long are you here for?
Until he kicks me out.
So you should come more often so we can educate our people. Yes.
They know their stuff.
So no, they know, but from a doctor's perspective.
Yeah,
I think it'll be nice because you really dig in and dive into it and really explain so they can understand.
Yeah, actually, I have a colleague. He's a doctor for the weather that you just mentioned and the diseases. He's coming in this week, so you're welcome.
Bring him in.
Yeah, he'll land and then he'll come here.
Yeah, the more discussion, I got to educate our other abulum at the more
Yeah. Aundas tianga ya kaldil tayida toksor el alsils ngaria mogi uriur el mail guk mamsada selmo urerela yid el public places awa erungun maigel venues. So Sagil amo set it up with our chief was saying tanga guk mong eme mosma yid, maybe they can invite him again and the partner that's coming in tonight, early tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. A talk show.
So we're wrapping up. My last question is with the advancement of modern technology, we're in the technology or the AI era. The DNA analysis of, I'm sure how do you use it to understand the behaviors of insects? Are you folks using technology now rather than the old manual and the behavior and the ecology of the environment?
One of you mentioned AI. So I'm from Tahiti. I'm from the South Pacific, right? So learning about the mosquitoes from the North Pacific for me was a big some stretch. Then I could learn. What's nice about these technologies is you can train a machine to identify mosquitoes. So we need to think that the planet is going to become more and more small, meaning, how I mentioned about Aedes aegypti that came in? Well, that's going to keep happening over and over. Now, if my expertise is just the Pacific, I have to rely on other experts that are from Africa, for example, or that are even from like the west side of the Pacific, Solomon, Vanuatu, all those islands, which I know very little, right? Now with new technologies, we're able to use or train AI to identify species from across the planet. And that's because pictures or characteristics that are being used from across the planet could be put in one location. And so that's becoming a very powerful tools in terms of environmental protection. Before, it would take 2 to 3 months to identify something. Now you can take it in a picture, and with a very short, you can have it. You know what species it is, and sometimes you can almost know what variation it is. And so you can use that information to best address your issue.
So he mentioned we have, Oshiro mentioned we have 23 different kind of species of mosquito. Can those 23 different mosquitoes, can they breed and then have different eggs?
Right. So the hybridization is what they call. The species we have here in Palau are very distinct. You can force hybridize, but the eggs usually don't hatch. So it's lucky for them they hybridize, but that's usually very I mean, there's eggs, but that don't hatch, so it's no viable offsprings. It's kind of like the horse and the mule, right, and the donkey. So, but the team here is very, very knowledgeable. You have one of the best teams in the region. They know their species, they know their products, they're certified, they're trained. You have a very, very highly trained team here on Palau.
We just need to have them come out more often.
And don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. These guys.
Yeah, since you have the mic, if you want to share and close up, and then we'll have Oshiro, then we'll have Sylvia be the last one to close our program.
Well, thanks everyone. I want to wish everyone a good South Pacific Games. A lot of things to be proud of.
Don't say good luck, Palau, beat Tahiti.
How about I'll say this? Let's beat dengue.
Amen.
Let's beat dengue.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen, for today, this morning. Mostly, thank you, Lim, for coming with us this morning and help us to spread the message regarding our work, and just hope that he can come back more often and
Not
be
hope,
with us.
just have him order him to come. Him and his colleague that's arriving soon.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks to PIOA,
Yeah.
the PIOA, because they're here to help us prepare ourselves before the South Pacific Games.
Oh,
so,
that's good.
Yeah.
Kabong sis.
Malawring asulam Miss Chen ma tel radio station ra Senator Saloy el host tel talkshow el tutao ma rogul listeners ra EPFM if you're linked to it. Tiang ada kalulu mga la talkshow agiguk team leway sa igilguk mo relaman mo mukatmok ra klugul mong guk ngania mo riurun may el guk mo ay sa bebira ay giluro ra obviously saying ya mukatmok la makmal yung suli ra question sa kami al nasomil ko kogel mer kama masamal smad mo ring akla mo ngir kami ra to el gibo mo ring ra kluk kumal musulang have a nice day.
Comrade Masulang al TV, and thank you Dr. Lim. Comrade Masulang Google bangama mer el al sils alin di hamobes klina maorir kau ai ge rogul mol mutaigal mangur maliu salsum ka mange ataliu sai ge mangiriul meles val ko make sure dia hatalwal waral mataya maigal blila baal butilyang magada motmakal kay nga siya ya partnership lo bangala ospital eliminate tatogora lepto matogora dengue de podakargi krama orirgit komal masauli ay de hamobes luase aklu gengomu ultial spray ray gayit el pasyol blal dunga mis modrang makadai kay nga siya podada imat dagat makli edongot mokargit el gel Pacific mini games el maldi mede la erul sunday eng morgitial games endi gatam dingel wase batokar kay galbalu am la mo start el maral may mapoda kargi kleta kay nga siya gut makliya balwat dobring asule la spider Palau Eco Paradise el guklo sabi ilo bangyadar el altuta we disseminate the information and morar adarabalu mokomal masaw lulul bangamamer el altuta ya Dios lolmon lo makngal tangat tergi darogoy mapalwat pelaw komran masulang ungilsid sile gorgaw matulungal gargaw komal masulang. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having